All right. Stefan.
Yes.
Stefan, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Costa Rica. My mother is Costa Rican. My father is Puerto Rican, or a New Rican, rather. Um, was there from till two, and then from 2 to 8, I was raised in Inglewood, California,
Hmm.
um, in the ghetto. It was pretty rough, very rough, extremely rough, actually. The apartment that we lived in, there was an alley in the back. There was always gunshots every single night. I never got scared of that. The only time I got scared was when I actually heard like a little machine gun. That kind of scared me. But little pop-offs here and there, that's a normal thing. So I grew up in Inglewood, and then when I was 10, my mom and my stepdad, not my dad had gone out of the picture a long time ago. We moved back to Costa Rica. With my sister was born, so I did from 10 to 18. I was living in Costa Rica. Life changed dramatically when we moved to Costa Rica, or moved back rather, because over here, I grew up in poverty, very extremely poor conditions, unsafe. But I understand the hustle that my parents were doing. They were saving money. They were saving and saving and saving, which is what ultimately my parents, my stepdad is also Costa Rican. So the whole goal was always to go back, never to stay here permanently. And so they managed to save money during that whole period of time. And then when we moved to Costa Rica, we bought a home, bought apartments. They bought a restaurant. I was in private schools. Life changed dramatically. I literally went to one of the best private schools in the country. My classmate was the son of an ex-president. You're going from Inglewood, California, and your peers in that environment to a totally different. You're now like rubbing shoulders with the creme de la creme of society. It's just such a juxtaposition. Over here in Inglewood, my mom would clean apartments and homes, and on the weekends I would go and help her. I would go and play basketball in the park, and then my stepdad would tell me, okay, now we got to go through the trash cans and collect all the cans. So like that was a normal thing for me. Then going from that to now, now everybody has a housemaid. And my mom used to be one of those housemaids, it's just it was a very weird thing. So a lot of that's where I kind of grew up, right? It's just very different environments. Learning how to transfer through those societies, I have to learn how to be a chameleon. Basically, it's like, okay, here I'm this, and in this group I'm something totally different, right? And just learning how to deal with that. I've always been a shy person. I didn't tell you, but my biological father, he was also a Marine, but he also developed paranoid schizophrenia. So my whole life, I've known my dad has had paranoid schizophrenia. And growing up with a parent who has paranoid schizophrenia makes you shy. It makes you, because they do crazy shit. They do crazy things that as a child, you're just like, this is so embarrassing, even for me. I just like, one of the things that I always remember with my dad is that we would be driving in his Mustang, and he would force me to roll my window down so that he can throw pennies at other drivers. I'm like, Dad, please. I'm like, just a little kid, dude. I don't want to do that stuff, that definitely left an imprint in my life on how I see things. But it's also one of the reasons why I wanted to join the Marine Corps, right? I got the idea of joining the Marine Corps from him. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he's gone through some things, the challenges that the VA presents. I've seen my dad, and I used to have to visit my dad when he was locked up in a psych ward as a child, So these are just situations that I grew up kind of normalizing these issues. It's really not normal, but for me, that's all I knew at that time. So that's how I grew up.
And you moved back to the U.S.?
So man, I was burned out from high school. So in high school, I decided to do a challenging program over there. It was an international baccalaureate. I don't know if you ever heard of that. An international baccalaureate is basically akin to AP classes, right? Except that you take all your classes are AP, every single thing that you do. And the international baccalaureate is it's a college preparatory program. So I was burnt out after that. And so I was like, okay, my mom and my stepdad made it easy for me in the sense that they're like, look, Estefan, you can, Costa Rica, you can do anything you want over here. We'll pay for your school. You want to go to college here. You want to do your own thing. For me, the problem with all those offers was that I participated in their struggle, right? When I was a child. So I saw all the struggles that they were going through and all the things that they were doing. So for me, I grew up thinking, you know what? That's for y'all. Like, thank you for all the tools that you've given me and all the opportunities and being able to go to this private school. Let me now make my own fortune and make my own destiny. You've given me the tools, so I'm going to go and do my own thing. And I'm going to earn my keep. And so that's what I decided to come back to the United States. And I didn't want my parents to pay for anything or to help me in any way, because they already did. That's how I felt. Like, let me just not be a burden anymore for them. Enjoy your life. Let me do my own thing. And so I joined the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps for a lot of different reasons, but I wanted to get out of the country. I wanted to come. I wanted to become a man. I wanted a different challenge. I was tired of the mental challenge at that point. I wanted a physical challenge. Prior to that, the only thing I ever did was play soccer. Another thing, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Costa Rica does not have a military. Costa Rica has abolished their military since the 1950s. So for me to have this idea, it was very controversial for my classmates and my colleagues and my counselors, because none of them had ever dealt with the situation. The college preparatory school that I went to had 100% enrollment into college. I broke that for them by joining the Marine Corps. None of them could ever understand why anyone would do that. I needed to prove to myself that I can develop myself in this world, that I can become a man, like all these different things that the military can offer. I wouldn't have even thought about it had my dad not been in my life. So despite him being paranoid schizophrenic, my dad is the most gentle person to me. To me, he's never been violent. He's always been very loving, but only to me. And so I appreciated that, but I also vowed that if I was going to join the military, that I would not come out like him. That was very important for me, that I join. And I thought I was joining in peacetime, which I was, and then 9/11 happened. So 9/11, I had already been a Marine for 9 months. When I joined the Marine Corps, I decided that I wanted to be an infantry machine gunner. I figured if I'm going to do something challenging, first of all, if I'm going to join the military, I want to join the most challenging branch. And then if I'm going to be in this branch, I want to have the most challenging job. So I did my little research, and I figured that being an infantry machine gunner was probably going to be the most physically challenging thing that I can do in the Marines. And so that's what I set out to do, and that's what I did. Never in a million years, it's dumb me, that I ever think that we would actually be in war again. That something like 9/11 would ever happen. And then it did. And that day we were out in 29 Palms, because that's where I was stationed in 29 Palms. I never even knew that place existed. And we get the news, and it's like, okay, 9/11, the towers got hit. I had a bunch of people in my platoon that were from New York. So the higher-ups had them call their families and make sure that they're okay. But basically that same day, the speech was, gents, we're the tip of the spear. Where we're going, we don't know. When we're going, we don't know. But every single thing that you do from now on is real. Don't take your training lightly. You are going to go somewhere at some point, somewhere. So I was like, okay. The following day after we get back, about 5 people deserted. They were like, fuck this. We are not going to participate in anything. They literally deserted the unit. It's funny how the military trains you. I'm coming from a peace-loving society where there are no weapons. It's such a foreign concept to even the concept of a military in Costa Rica. It's just such a foreign thing. And here, I'm like now gung-ho about going to war. Where, I don't even know. But that training is the level of brainwashing that you get, that they do. It's intense, and it works. It's effective because I was gung-ho. I wanted to go somewhere and get some action, whatever that means for people. Ultimately, we did get deployed to Iraq. We were there. We had trained for a conventional war that we were going to be fighting against tanks and other battalions and things of that nature, and an army. But when we got there, finally, we did not participate in the invasion of Iraq. We got there about a year afterwards. And when we got there, this was not a conventional warfare in any single way at all. So our mission when we got there was to essentially be the Iraqi highway patrol. I was a mechanized or mobilized infantry unit. We had Humvees, and we had our machine guns mounted on top. We also had it's called a TOW missile. It's a thermal optic wire guided missile. So those were the teams that were working together as a unit. But again, we had trained for a conventional war, not for this sort of, you got to go through towns and bust in doors and pull people out and patrol a highway, make sure that it's clear, that it's safe, that the main artery of transportation is always open for business. That's not something that we train for. That's all something that we had to acquire and do once we were there. When we got there, first of all, we landed in Kuwait, south of Iraq. Then from there, it was a 3-day drive through Iraq to get to our base. During that 3-day drive, we got shot at. We got yelled at. We had to do maneuvers. We had to shoot back. There was so many that. You're literally going from, safety in the United States. We flew on a fucking Delta Airlines to Kuwait. That's how awkward the situation was. Out of March Air Force Base here in Moreno Valley, we were on a Delta Airlines transported to Kuwait. It was just such a weird, awkward thing. I was 20 years old. I purposefully did not want to have a wife or a child or anything like that because, you're 20 years old in the military. Who wants to be tied down to anything like that, right? We finally reached our base. So when we finally reach our base, and then they tell us what our missions are going to be, we had to be out there for 12-hour patrols. They also told us that we would not have any resupply. So whatever ammunition we have on us, that's it. We ain't gonna get no other ammunition for the next 3 months at least. I was like, wait a second. So I only have 6 clips on me, 6 magazine clips on me for my rifle, and we have maybe 10 ammo cans in our vehicle for the machine gun. That's one firefight. one firefight, we blow our load, and we're not going to get resupplied. Like, then what that prompted us to do is, we're there to do a mission, but no one there really believed in the mission. Like, no, we're not there. Politics, none of that exists when you're a boot on the ground, right? That shit is, that you're impartial. You're just there to survive. That, like, whatever it is that you're doing, you're just there to stay alive. I wanted to come back home. That's it. That, for me, that was my mission. I didn't want to, I was not hell bent on getting action or on, putting myself at risk, because I personally didn't believe in the mission that we were there for. But that wasn't really something that was even discussed amongst my unit. So it was survival mode. Like, literally, that's all you're there. You are on survival mode 24/7. The base that we were at, when we got to the actual base, we didn't have a structure to sleep under. We slept in fucking tents. And our unit and our base would get attacked by, the terrorists on the Toyotas with their mortars shooting missiles at our base. There isn't anything that you can do to prevent being hurt by that. It's just the luck of the draw. Our base got attacked several times from missiles. We were just fucking lucky that they suck, that they don't know that their equipment is horrible, because they're just banking on trying to scare you and they also know that they're not the most accurate in doing attacks. So, you're in this situation, you're constantly in survival mode. So, how do you make the most out of that? You fuck around with your buddies, you make light of the situation as much as you can. You try to set aside the reality, and you just live in this sort of fictional little world that you're with your friends, literally just to stay alive. Because the minute that one of my friends started like really thinking about the situation that we're in, now that person's a liability. Now I have to worry about, dude, is this dude is his head in the game? Like, is he gonna be able to make sure that I stay alive, right? Because I see him thinking too much about things, and that's not useful or helpful to keep everyone alive. Which at the end of the day, like all that military training, that explains why we're there, like what we're doing, how all that training comes to surface. And it makes sense, right? We're trying to stay alive. The missions that we were doing, again, we were just doing like highway patrol. We had to go through different cities just to make a presence. There were times where we went. It's funny because we're literally in the most historical place in the world. Right, you were literally like the Tigris River and the Euphrates, the cradle of society. I was there. For me, it wasn't also like so impactful to see poverty because I was in Costa Rica. Like, even though in Costa Rica, you have you can have a huge, beautiful mansion right there, and then right next to it, poverty. Extreme poverty. And that's how that juxtaposition is a real thing in Costa Rica and in most developing countries. The same in Iraq. You have poverty abounds. And so that wasn't the shocking thing. Obviously, it's a very different culture. The dress and the temperature and all these things are totally different. Anyways, we had to go to the other side of the river where there was no military presence for months. And that is when I feared for my life the most, because they straight up told us, we want you to make a presence in this area. Let them know that we still are in control. However, no one has been there for about 7 or 8 months. And at the same time, you're not going to get any air support. So we're like, okay, so y'all just literally just fucking send us on these death missions, like to go and for what, right? It's like, well, we got to win the hearts and minds. I'm like, dude, I just want to stay alive. Okay, so we go there. It was the scariest thing that I've ever had to live through. We're in our Humvees. Humvees are not tactical vehicles. They're loud. There's no way that you can be sneak up on anyone in the Humvee, right? So it's obvious that we're going through the city. It's literally a one road city. That road, it fits one car. You can't turn around easily. So we're going through this. We turn into this road, and literally as soon as we turn into this road, I start seeing guys getting on roofs with RPGs and their AK-47s. I was like, and I'm the driver, and I'm on the lead vehicle. I put a halt to that situation immediately. I was like, look, I am not gonna make us go through this. We have no air support. We are sitting ducks. We're literally sitting ducks. You need to call it in and tell everyone to get the fuck to turn back, because I'm not gonna go through this. If you want to go through this, I'm gonna get out and you drive. That was a very scary situation. I felt that if we would have gone through that, we would have been killed. We would have been, the biggest thing. My mom hated the fact that I joined the Marine Corps. It was the most challenging thing for her to live through because I tried to call her as often as possible. It's challenging. You don't get that freedom. It's difficult. The hours are different, right? So I wasn't always in contact with her, but the one thing that I did always remind myself is that I don't want, because you see the news, right? And you see the war and you see it all happening. And then you see that if they capture you as a soldier, that they're probably going to torture you and they're probably going to run your body through the streets. And that's what CNN was showing, right? That's what you would see on the news, fucking soldiers being dragged through the streets. I was like, that is the one thing that I don't want. I don't want my mom to see my body being dragged through the streets. And so that's the first thing that I thought of when I encountered that situation. And so I immediately turned around, I didn't want to go through that. One of the things that they also taught us too is that if you ever become overwhelmed by the enemy, that you should always save one round in your breast pocket for yourself. And so I always had that. Every time, I always made sure that I had one last round in my breast pocket, so that if I would rather kill myself than to let the enemy torture me and put that on TV or let my mom see that sort of situation. These are things that 18-year-olds shouldn't have to be worrying about. These are things that 20-year-old kids shouldn't really have to be dealing with, right? But you're in that situation, and again, that the training is key, is to keep you alive, and I appreciate the hardness of the Marines and of my drill instructors, because at the end of the day, that's what kept me alive. Now, I did end up, suffering a huge accident. That's what took me out of the game. Prior to that, we had already survived 5 IEDs exploding. The first time that an IED exploded right in front of me, you're on patrol and you don't want to get ambushed. And so you have to pretend that it didn't happen. Literally, it's like this shit just blew right in front of like a massive explosion.
Could have died.
Yes. And you have to drive through it because if you stop, that the enemy is likely setting up an ambush. So it's like, okay, it's just like, wow, did we just survive this? Like, you're like, literally your ears are ringing and everything is like, holy shit, I'm the driver. And it's such a, I don't know how it's living through something like that. I fall short from words because it's such a anomalous situation. Your human beings aren't really like our capacity to react to something like that. It's every individual reacts differently, but it's a situation where it's like, wow, we just survived that. what time is lunch? Because I'm fucking starving. Right? Like, can we go get a smoke break or something? Like, it's just, you set it aside. You set it aside because the minute that you start letting these thoughts creep into you, then your situational awareness becomes less, and you're putting yourself and your friends at risk. Because you can't let that get to you, affect you like that. I understood that completely, and it's part of this whole military, like, being hard. You got to be strong. You got to be emotionally sterile. You have to be able to just go through it and live with it and complete the mission. So that was again, I had already survived 5 explosions before the last one took me out. That night or that day, I had been in Iraq for 4 months already. There's no weekends, like, there's no like, hey, you guys get the weekend off or anything like that. No, it's like these are your days. You're on one day, on off the next, and you switch out. And so we had moved in. They finally got us. They're called like container boxes to live in. So now we were no longer in tents. Our living conditions improved a little bit better. Now we're in containers, like shipping containers with ACs at least. Now the AC doesn't always work. The conditions in Iraq during that period of time, it was 120, 135, 130 degree weather, full gear. It is, again, you look back at things like that, it's like, wow, I really survived that sort of situation. And so that the last day of me being in Iraq was we had a mission to transport some snipers to do a mission. And so we had to maintain our we were basically the snipers 911, right? If they got into some shit, we would be able to be with them within 2 or 3 minutes. So we dropped them off. This was a mission that we were supposed to be super sneaky. We're in the middle of the desert. There's no lights. It was a night that the full moon. We're driving with night vision goggles on. That is the only reason why I'm here, is because we actually had our helmets on. We were advised, during the day to keep our helmets on for the IEDs that would blow up, but it's too hot. It's hot as balls. And so the minute that during the daytime, we would, as soon as we get back into our Humvee, we take that thing off and chuck it into the back. But obviously we're not thinking through an explosion without a helmet. Yeah, your brain is toast. So luckily we had our night vision goggles on that night. We dropped off the snipers, and then we were just going to set up an observation post, an LPOP listening post and an observation post at the top of this little hill. It was on the way towards reaching the top of that hill as I'm turning. That's the last thing that I remember. I just remember I'm turning and driving up the hill. The next thing that I remember is that I'm touching my face. I'm leaning back against the hill. I'm looking up at the sky. I can't really hear what's going on. I hear people yelling and screaming, but I'm at peace. And I'm just touching my face, and I'm all wet. And I thought that I fell asleep and that somebody chucked a water on me. No, it was none of that. It was, my face was gushing blood. I was gushing blood all over. The explosion, as the driver of the vehicle, it propelled me forward. And so with the night vision goggles on, I basically imagine like a Superman slamming you into a 3-inch thick bulletproof windows. You don't go through those type of windows. You smack into it. And so that's basically what happened to me. I received every single bone in my face was fractured. I had a fractured vertebrae. That's why I have this scar from ear to ear. It's a surgical scar to repair my face. I had I have $20,000 of titanium in my face is what the doctors tell me. My jaw was split in three. Anyways, from what I do remember from that night is that, again, I was touching my face, and I realized that something happened. I realized that, okay, something did happen here. I don't know what happened, but I can hear the doc, our medic, saying that our staff sergeant is dead. I was like, I'm just hearing, I'm not reacting. I can't react. Not because I don't want to or anything, but I physically, literally, I'm in such a daze, and I realize that, oh, my body is going through trauma. Like, my body's trying to shut down. And I do remember helicopters. I do remember hearing helicopters and thinking to myself, okay, I'm probably going to be heading home. And then the next memory that I have after that is, yes, I do realize that I'm now in an ER. I'm on a stretcher. I have no idea what's happening to me. I'm literally almost unconscious, in and out of consciousness. I'm not in any pain, thankfully. I do remember seeing a bunch of lights over my face and over my head. Okay, I realized that, okay, I'm being taken care of. The next time I wake up, I'm being transported from a stretcher to a huge aircraft. And then the next memory that I have after that is finally waking up in the ICU in Maryland. So I went from Iraq to the capital, where they had like the emergency services to stabilize me, to then from there I was transported to Germany. I was there for 5 days. Somehow, some way, my parents managed to call me while I was in Germany, and I could hear them. I could only nod. I couldn't talk. When I wake up in the hospital in Maryland, I am surrounded by my family. But when I woke up, my face was so swollen that I was blind. My eyes were still blind, were swollen shut, literally swollen shut. I had all the teeth in my mouth were wired down because they all got knocked loose, some fractured. And because my jaw was broken, I had a tracheotomy, I had a breathing tube, I had a feeding tube. My hands were restrained because apparently I was trying to remove everything. And so when I finally wake up, and I also had a catheter in my, that was not pleasant to wake up to that situation as well. So. But
you survived.
I survived.
Whereas your passengers and your.
One passed away. So life is such a crazy thing, because literally the person sitting right behind me, he died immediately, instantly. The seating arrangement in a Humvee is such that the rear tire, the seat sits right over the wheel well, right? So literally the person in the back chair is sitting right over the tires in the back chair, essentially. Because it was a landmine that got activated by the weight of the vehicle from the rear tire, that force, it rippled through his body. Every single bone in his body acted like a little projectile because it was fractured internally. So he passed away immediately.
It's interesting that the front tire didn't hit anything.
It's just, I was turning. That's how, going up a hill, just turning, that's how the front tire managed to go around it. I mean, a lot of people.
It was dark or light?
It was nighttime. It was nighttime, and we were being tactical. So, you're going up a dirt hill with our night vision goggles because we're trying to be super sneaky. But you can hear a Humvee in the dead of the night 12 miles away. So there's no, you're not tipping off, you're tipping everyone off, obviously. So he passed away. The thing about being in an accident like this and in the military is that once you are disassociated from your unit, that's it. You are no longer part of your unit. You are no longer attached to your unit. You are now part of the medical unit. That was very difficult for me to live through because all I wanted to do was be there with my friends. That's it. I just wanted to recover and be back to help my friends survive. Those were the only thoughts. I was like, that was like the first thought that came through my mind was, fuck, I can't help anybody anymore. Now they're there without me. Like I can't ensure that they're gonna come back. That was it. Like that's all I was thinking. I was like, fuck, I wish I could be back there because they're still there and I'm not, and I can't do anything here. I felt so paralyzed. It's a terrible feeling that you can't help people that you love. And it's funny because, years after I learned about this concept of these trauma bonds, and that's a real thing. That is how I bonded with these guys to this day. I'm in a group chat with these guys. Unfortunately, I'm the only one from California because everyone's from the East Coast, but they're still my best friends 20 years after the fact. And it's just such an interesting thing that you can make such long-lasting relationships with complete strangers. That these are people that I would have never wanted to meet to begin with, right? But you're put together in a situation, and you quickly, boot camp is a great sort of icebreaker because you are forced to have to learn how to talk to people that don't look like you. You're forced to have to rely on them more than just talk. You have to rely on them to keep you alive. Like that's some level of trust and commitment that not even spouses give each other, right? Like it's such a awkward thing. But once you realize, okay, this is survival, then it all clicks and makes sense. I wake up in the hospital, and obviously I think about my friends, but I also have this like ringing sort of sensation in my ears, like, fuck, I know not everyone survived. And I had to figure out a way to ascertain whether or not this staff sergeant, whether or not he was alive or not, because no one could tell me. None of the doctors, no personnel could tell me anything about anyone that night because they don't have that information. And I felt really impotent. It feels really, I was on this quest to satisfy this, like, fuck, did someone die?
How many people were in the vehicle?
It's 5 of us. So there's four seats and then our machine gunner standing in the middle. The sergeant in the front passenger, he got tossed out on the side. He broke his ankle. The kid, because literally he's a kid. So Staff Sergeant had been in the Marine Corps for 8 years. This kid had just joined us right after turning 18. This kid sitting right next to the Staff Sergeant who immediately passed away. It looked like he just fell off a bicycle and got some scratches on his forehead. Our gunner, he got propelled in the air about 40 feet. He got some shrapnel in his ass. That gentleman, that kid, also a kid, today is a doctor in Newport Beach. It's such an amazing thing that from that one vehicle, not a lot of people give Marines a lot of credit because we're always seen as like the cavemen, right? Like we're the dumbest of the group of all the services. We're just brutes. We're Neanderthals, right? And to a degree, that's true. There are some smart kids in there that join us. And so this kid, now he came out and he's a doctor. He's a neurology doctor out in Newport. I was able to, become an attorney after the fact. Obviously not everyone did that either. The kid who looks like he fell off the bike, he's now has a career as I think he does soldering, right? So he picked up a trade. right? But the point is that like the opportunity for education is there for all of us. It's a very independent choice to make when you get out. When I got out, so I had to ascertain whether or not someone died, and no one could do that. But no one around me could do that. When I was well enough, when I could finally walk on my own without needing the assistance of anyone, which was maybe 3 months after the fact, after my injury, I was able to go to a computer in the hospital, and I knew that the government maintained a website of all the personnel that are killed in action.
Other than the injuries to your upper body, your head, what other injuries did you have?
It's such a crazy thing. I was so fortunate. I had some injuries to my hand. I had some injuries to my knee, but more like just abrasions.
So mostly to your head.
Everything was here. And that's the thing. The doctors focused on my face 100%. But because I had the morphine drip, I had never felt any pain. It wasn't until I was released from the hospital and back home in California, the following day, I felt this pain in my back that was immobilized. I couldn't move my arms. It was so painful. I was like, Mom, something is wrong. Like there's something is hurting me a lot. And she's like, okay, let's go. And so we went to Loma Linda VA. And they did some x-rays, and they're like, yeah, you got a fractured back. You had a fractured vertebrae. I was like, it's still currently fractured. It was like, oh, damn, no wonder. No wonder I'm in pain. So they stabilized it. They told me that I was, in that area in Loma Linda, they take care of a lot of senior veterans, and it's known for its geriatric medicine. They told me that I was the youngest person to have a procedure where they insert like a bone cement this is like for people who have osteoporosis. I was like, okay, well, at least you can do something to stabilize, because there's not much that you can do when you have a fractured vertebrae.
Did you have survivor's guilt for that one?
Oh, that was the most challenging thing, honestly. I mean, I never even knew that as a concept.
Could have been you.
Oh, it could have been me. I mean, most of the times I wish it was me. That's the level of pain that I dealt with that I was not equipped to deal with, because, you're trained to just be this hard ass dude with no emotions, no pain, no suffering. Just do the mission. Don't bitch, don't complain, don't be a whiner, don't be a little bitch, don't be a pussy, shit like that, And then, you get out, and then you're not with your friends anymore. You don't have those people pushing you around you, like getting you to like, come on, dude, like get back in the game. You don't have that. What you have are nurses, and back then with brain injuries, the military, wasn't really up to speed on how to deal with those with us, because, the previous wars were more gunfights and more missiles attacks and things of that. With IEDs and explosions, it's a different type of trauma, a different injury. And so they were not equipped to treat me, right? Because they didn't. Let's be honest. They did obviously treat my physical symptoms. I mean, I pretty much looked the same from when I was, 20-year-old. I have scars on my face, but I pretty much looked at those doctors, which is why I wanted to go to medical school after the fact. Those doctors inspired me. Another little tidbit here is that my mom, she's the one who, out of all her siblings, decided to shun away from the Catholic Church, because in Costa Rica, everyone is Roman Catholic. She hated that. She was mistreated by the church. And so when I came into her existence, she was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to teach that. None of that to my children. And so I grew up as an atheist, essentially, right? That is a rare thing in the military. And it's not looked it's controversial to be an atheist in the military, apparently. I didn't really realize that until I was in, and everyone believes in God, and everyone, puts their I'm a Catholic or I'm a Christian on your dog tag. I had no religious preference, and so going through this rehabilitation period, people would often be like, "You should thank God. You should thank God." I'm like, "No, I should thank the doctors. Those are the people who really saved my life. They did the most incredible work." And the technology that exists, I'm only here because of technology. The technology that exists today to repair, facial fractures, the facial reconstruction, it's amazing. It's truly state of the art. And I had never been in a hospital before that, other than being born. I had never been in a hospital during my whole life until that major ass accident. And at Bethesda, Maryland, it used to be called the National Naval Medical Center. Now it's called Walter Reed, the President's Hospital. I was treated like a king. I had never been hospitalized to that degree, to that effect. The Marine Corps has a Marine Corps liaison unit attached to hospitals. And so I was so thankful to have, Marines to come and check in on me. Like, "Hey, bro, how you doing? Are you feeling better today?" Just to shoot the shit, like just to feel like you're still part of a unit, that you're still, you can relate to these people. Because you're also taught that we're not the Navy. We are a department of the Navy, but this is a naval hospital. So I'm surrounded by seamen, right? And so it's like, you don't want to be around that. You want to be around your crew, which are Marines. So they're smart enough to realize, like, hey, yeah, we should probably attach some Marines to the unit so that when Marines get injured, they can be, they can have other Marines around them. So I was very thankful for that. I was also very thankful for my parents and my sister. My sister was 10 years old when this happened. It happened in June, so she was on vacation. Both my parents were able to fortunately, this happened after the fact that they made their own fortune, so they didn't have to work. I was hospitalized for almost 90 days straight. In Maryland, and I was the only guy who had my family there every single day. That is what accelerated my recovery. Being surrounded by loved ones and being surrounded by people who are encouraging you to recover, and you see the light. You see, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna be stuck here forever, or it's like, a lot of veterans and a lot of injured people, you start going through that, like, fuck, am I ever going to recover? What's the point? Like, do I even need to? Should I just wither away? The mental health component. I was very lucky that I had a prefrontal cortex traumatic injury. So basically, this is the thickest part of your brain is your forehead. And it doesn't really affect your motor skills. It affects your judgment. It affects your personality. It affects your executive decision making. But I was very fortunate that I didn't lose any motor skills. That I always tell people, and I joke around, like, hey, maybe it even made me smarter. I don't know. Right? Getting that hit in the noggin.
Do you regret joining the military?
Never. And I will say, I put a caveat. I say this because of my condition today. If I was wheelchair bound, if I was missing limbs, if my face was disfigured, I may have a different opinion. And I acknowledge that.
If you were sitting behind you.
Right. Exactly.
you wouldn't.
I wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be regretting it. You'd be dead.
Right. I don't regret it only because I feel like I wasn't able to overcome it. If I wasn't able to overcome it, then I'm sure I would be regretting it, right? But I overcame that trauma. And I realized that is my journey to recovering from this whole situation. Some people turn to God. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to vices, anything to escape. I don't know who to thank. I guess I thank my mom the most. She's a very humble woman. I thank my mom because the only thing that I could think of was like, man, I'm so lucky I survived. I'm so blessed in that regard that I feel this need to give back. Like I need to give back. And the one thing that was always on my mind was the death of Staff Sergeant. That his death to me was the most difficult thing for me to overcome, because my whole thing was, damn, this was a guy who had been in the Marine Corps for at least 8 years. He was a staff sergeant. He had a wife and kids, people who depended on him. You know, he was in charge of the unit that night of the snipers. People looked up to him. This was a person, an important person to me, a leader, someone that people look up to. I was no one. I was just a little corporal. Like I should have been I had no family. I had my mom, but no one depended on me for anything. I should have been the one to leave this earth, not him. But that's not how life works, you know? And so I felt that survivor's guilt, it hit me hard. It hit me hard. I also, because I was a driver, I felt personally responsible for that situation. It took me a long time to accept that I was not my fault. It took me a long time to accept that there's nothing that I could have done to change things.
Especially at night.
Right, especially at night. It's buried underground. You can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it during the day.
And we're with night vision goggles on. I mean, like it's an impossible situation.
It's not your fault.
But I'm the one living through it. And so, again, like the Marine Corps training, the pride, also the injury itself. Once that happened, first of all, when I joined, I was never going to join for more than 4 years. Like I was just going to do my 4 years, get my college GI Bill, and be able to do that. That was always going to be my trajectory. But this also made me realize that, okay, I never want to put my life at risk ever again for some shit that I don't believe in. So I am not going to be a first responder when I get out. I'm not going to put my life at risk. I'm not going to be a cop. I'm not going to be which is what a lot of guys do. And it's just such a natural thing to do, right? You get that training, you get that adrenaline rush, right? That camaraderie. That is important to a lot of people, because I realized that for me, when I joined, this was my first choice. I realized that for a lot of my guys, a lot of my friends, that was the last thing that they could do to make something out of their lives. And it's sad that we're both the same age, but were raised so differently and in such different environments, that for me, this is the first thing that I want to check off my list to get my life started, right? And for other guys, this is like, nah, this is the last thing like that I can do to make something out of my life, because I've been in trouble all the time. I'm not good in school, this and that. It's funny. Like, this is the equalizer.
It's interesting that you became a lawyer.
Oh, super interesting. Super interesting, because
What kind of lawyer?
Today I do a lot of civil litigation related to helping people, homeowners who have been defrauded by home improvement companies and solar panel companies that just sell them the wrong shit and totally take advantage of their situation. I'm still fighting, is what I'm doing. I'm still fighting. I'm not fighting a war that I don't believe in, but I'm still fighting for justice, which I do believe in. And I'm still giving back. And for me, that was the thing. It was like, man, my life was spared. My life was spared, and I need to make something out of it. And I need to give back, and I need to make the death of this staff sergeant, for his death to not be in vain. That was it for me. Like that for me, that was my philosophy on how I'm gonna be able to not only overcome my own demons and my own issues, but also to give me a different purpose in life, right? To give me a purpose in life, potentially. So the way that I thought I was going to give back was by becoming an ER doctor, right? Those are the people who saved my life. I was very gracious and grateful for that and for the skills that they acquired. And I thought that I was smart enough to do that. I mean, I did go through a rigorous training in high school, so I felt on par that I had the skills to do that. And I did, and I went, I did my undergrad, and then I graduated in 2008, and that's when the recession happened. So here I am, dumb me thinking, or smart me or whatever, thinking, okay, I'm gonna graduate, and I need a job so that I can sustain myself, so that I can study, so I can study for the MCAT. The problem is because so as soon as I recovered, my parents went back to Costa Rica, and I was like, look, thank you guys for being here for that moral support, but I'm back. I'm good. I'm good. Let me do my thing. Let me go to college. Let me reestablish my life. I don't want your help anymore. Like, stop helping me. So I finished college, and right when the recession hit, and I'm looking for jobs, and no one is hiring. And I'm like, wow, no one's even gonna hire a veteran? Like, I literally put my life on the line. And then I realized, like, when I put my resume together, the field that I chose to do my job skills in the military I was an infantry machine gunner. I put that on my resume to apply to work at an office job. It's like, they're not transferable skills, right? The jobs that were available, security guard. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I just survived the situation that I didn't believe in. I'm not about to put my life at risk again. Not for a fucking security job. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So the work wasn't coming. Hence, the studying wasn't happening. So someone suggested to me at the time was like, look, why don't you want to help people, right? I was like, yes. You can still help people being a lawyer. I was like, what the no, hell no. No way. Lawyers are scumbags. They are the bane of this earth. I despise everything that they stand for. They don't help anybody. I was like, no, dude, think about it. Just do some research. Think about it. Like, you can still help. The LSAT's in 2 weeks. I was like, okay, well, the LSAT's in 2 weeks. I was like, okay. What do I need to know for the LSAT? Like, am I even, like, will a law school even accept my application? Because I didn't study anything related to the law. And I come to realize, like, no, law schools, they don't give a crap what you study. They just want you to have a bachelor's degree. But you do have to take the LSAT. I was like, okay, what do I need for the LSAT? They're like, you just need to have some good reading skills, some analytical, some logic, some processing ability, vocabulary, and be able to do that quick. I was like, okay, all right, I'll try it. I mean, I think I got some skills. I took my chances, and I took the test. And when I took the test, there was only one law school in California that was still accepting applications, which was Laverne in Ontario. The law school's in Ontario. So I applied to that college, and lo and behold, not only did they accept me, but they're like, hey, we'll also give you a 95% scholarship to come to law school. I was like, okay. All right, yeah, well, that doesn't happen to a lot of people, and I would be an idiot if I were to reject that offer and that opportunity. I'm a first-generation student. My mom didn't graduate high school. She went up to 9th grade. There's no one in my family who's reached this level. And I also knew very early on in my life, both from my mom and my stepdad and my dad, that these are not people that can help me academically. I recognized that very early on. Maybe in 5th grade, 6th grade, I was like, yeah, nah, I'm on my own here.
It's all on you.
Yeah, I'm on my own here. So, I acknowledge that, receiving a scholarship to go to law school, that's a big thing. I also realized that when I was in law school, or my first few days there, that the majority of people who are there are dying to be there. And I wasn't. I was like, I got this opportunity. People are there that have been taking LSAT practices for their whole high school careers, and I'm sitting right next to them. There's kids whose parents are lawyers and judges, and there was a federal judge kid whose father was a federal judge. And I'm sitting right next to them, in the same setting. And it's just a very awkward situation because it's like, wow, it's funny. People are dying to be here, and I just got the opportunity. I didn't put as much effort into it.
How long you been a lawyer now?
10 years. So this will be the 11th year as an attorney.
Do you regret that decision?
No, I don't. But I still do think of going back to school. I'm in school right now. USC has a Master of Business for veterans. It's only for veterans. So every single person in my class is a veteran. And I decided to start that program as well. But yeah, law school, getting that opportunity, I realized, okay, look, that's how I was going to give back. And that's how I was going to make Staff Sergeant's life, or his death rather, not in vain. It also took me
That's great.
several years to be able to call his wife. I was able to I called her when I finally got to law school. I felt that I felt that it wouldn't be sufficient. It wasn't going to be good enough for me to contact his surviving spouse if I hadn't accomplished something great in my life.
That's great.
So I was able to give her get in touch with her through Facebook, and then I was able to give her a call. We both cried. I mean, that was something that it changed. It's something that was necessary for her to accept that, and I needed to gave me closure. That honestly, there was no level of therapy. That's what I was going to tell you. That the Marine Corps during that time, the traumatic brain injury, that wasn't something that they were keen on really treating. Like, they acknowledge that it happens, that you have a traumatic brain, obviously, but how do you treat it? How do you recover from it? How do you deal with these individuals? What symptoms do they have? It was all a mystery. So I had to basically be my own therapist. Another thing that happened too is that I shunned the military and the veteran system completely. I wanted nothing to do with the military once I got out. I was the whole reason for the invasion and all these. I never believed in any of that. I could have been a conscientious objector, but I wanted my benefits. So I was like, fuck, I got to pick up a gun and go shoot, or at least pretend. Because I'm not going to do all this sacrifice and not get what I want out of it, right? Which is I wanted to get my GI Bill.
It's such an interesting story you have.
Thank you.
It's interesting. It's great that you were able to take the tragedy of your staff sergeant's death and turn it into something positive rather than just dwell on how tragic it was.
Right. I started seeing news about, veterans committing suicide and things of that. And every person's journey is solitary. You can be surrounded by people that love you and this and that, but at the end of the day, it's you. You have to internalize all that and figure out what works for you and what doesn't. For me, I'm also a shy person. Like I grew up like that. And so as a shy person, I also, becoming an attorney and not having to be shy anymore, it's very traumatic as well. Because it's like, when I first started thinking about law school, I was like, I'm going to do this. But the type of attorney that I want to be, I just want to be in the basement with no windows, just me and the computer, just doing my legal research. I don't have to talk to nobody. I don't have to go to court. I don't have to talk to clients. I don't have to do none of that. I don't want to. I'm shy. And then I quickly realized that in law school and doing some internships, I was like, attorneys can do a lot of good. But all these attorneys that I've been working for and doing things, I don't think they're doing it as well. And also, I don't think that they're helping those that... I want to be able to offer legal services to those that really need it. And I also, I start realizing, okay, I looked at my classmates. I was like, oh, I'm like the only veteran here, and I'm also the only, well, not the only, but one of the few Hispanics as well. And I'm also one of the few Hispanics that can actually speak Spanish. So I quickly realized, okay, I'm kind of unique in this situation where I have an opportunity to do something great for a society that is marginalized in that regard, right? That doesn't have access to justice. And so that was eye-opening for me, because I realized too, I was like, look, if my purpose here is to give back, I'm not going to be able to give back, or I don't think I'll be able to give back as much if I work for someone else, if I work for a firm. I'm just going to be thrown in there and do what they're bidding. I want to help. And I want to help my people and my community. And I see that there's such a need, so I decided to open up my own shingle as soon as I got my license. That was like the most, for a lot of people, it's like that's the dumbest thing or the smartest thing or just the most ridiculous thing to do, is to decide to become to open up your own practice with zero connections. Again, I being shy, it hobbles you. It really.
But there's always other strengths that you'll have.
Right. Well, for me, I had to get over that shit. I had to get over it, Mark.
Yeah.
I had to. Like, there was just no way. I realized, like, I need to put food on my table. But
you'll also retain those other strengths that you develop by being shy.
Right.
Because everyone who's shy has some other things that they develop that make up for the shyness.
So what made up for my shyness was my research skills.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't about to try and call attorneys and get them to be my mentor. I'm too shy for that.
Right.
I'd rather get that knowledge from a book.
You figure it out on your own.
Right. Not the smartest thing to do, because everything takes longer. But it's at the end of the day, I'm here, right? At the end of the day, I was able to turn that situation, and through just sheer the will to excel and to exceed and to, I'm a very chill dude. I don't get riled up from a lot of things. But I was also a Marine, and I realized that I look back, because with this master's group that I'm with my colleagues there's quite a number of Marines in that program. And it's funny because you can join any branch of service, but when someone decides to join the Marine Corps, there's just a little bit, there's something in there, in that person, in that individual that is a little off, right? Because to want to purposefully, put yourself in a masochist situation, it's not for everybody, right? And so, I realized that, yes, I'm also a Marine. I'm still a Marine, right? Like that's still coursing through my vein. It gave me the discipline, right? It taught me some discipline. It taught me that I am capable of pushing myself, not just physically, because at the end of the day, any physical challenge is here in your brain. That is one of the things that I appreciate the most out of the Marines, is that they really do push you to your mental limits. Your physical limits are, if your brain, that was the saying, mind over matter. If your mind doesn't let it matter, right, then you can do anything that you want, right? Pain is weakness leaving the body is always the saying, right? So I figured, okay, let me just bury myself in these books. Let me do the most that I can. Let me try to make something out of my life. Let me try to help. Let me try to give back. Let me try and be a source of inspiration for my community. I know where I come from. I come from nothing. I come from.
So you've changed the family history. Like your kids are going to be so different than.
Oh, totally.
Than your parents or anything else. Totally.
I have one child, one and done. That's it, one and done. She is the joy of my life. She's such an inspiration to me. She, it's funny. My child, Abby, she is the being that allowed me to love again, because what survivor's guilt does, for what it did for me at least, is it closed me off completely to everyone. It closed me off because I didn't want to feel that pain. I wasn't even like that staff sergeant. I didn't even know him that well, right? But I knew of him, and we interacted. And I felt that if I let someone else in, even just on like a friendship acquaintance level, and all of a sudden something happens to them, I'm gonna go through this same trauma again. And again, for me, that was the worst thing that I ever had to live with, because I always felt like it should have been me. I should not be here, right? I was okay with death at that point. I still am, and that's one of the training. That's one of the things that they train you, is that you can die at any second, and I lived that because I could have died. That could have been me, right? My life going just happy-go-lucky, just driving, and all of a sudden you're not there anymore. That happens all the time. But the Marine Corps kind of prepares you for that situation. And so I closed myself off, even though I had an ex-wife now, even though I had a prior wife. I entered into these relationships thinking that I was capable of giving them love or receiving their love. And I tried. Don't get me wrong, I tried. But I was closed off. I realized that I wasn't giving myself 100% to them because I didn't want to. I was scared of everything being taken away from me again. And that was the most traumatic thing. But with the birth of my child, you can't. Like that is instant love, instant connection, instant. She looks like me. I can't deny this child. She looks up to me. This is the person who, you bring a child into this world because you want them to, ideally you've made a world for their benefit. And so once this child was born, I feel that I was able to love again. And because I was opening myself up to losing. But with her life, I don't have any other choice. I know that I'm going to lose her.
Has it helped you with other relationships?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
That's great.
Yeah, completely. It's really changed my life for the best.
You have such an amazing story.
Thank you. I'm trying, Mark.
Let me ask you one last question. What would you say, Estefan, is the most important thing you've learned?
Don't give up. Don't give up. If something is challenging, if something is difficult, it's difficult for a reason. My philosophy has always been, even as a kid, and I don't know why, but it's always been, let me do the most challenging things up front.
Because the rewards will be greater.
Yes. Nothing that comes easy to you is ever appreciated. I know that. I struggled with my upbringing. I know the value of hard work and ethic. And so, just don't give up. It's challenging. Life is gonna hit you hard. Now, again, what helps me is my ability to give back. Not everybody has that ability or that skill or can do that, right? And I acknowledge that. It's challenging. Mark, it's been challenging for me to see other veterans who have gone through much less, but are in more pain or, want to be in that situation. It's challenging for me to be empathetic to those situations. But I have learned now, especially being an attorney, you got to be empathetic. And whatever happens to you, the same thing can happen to two different people. You're going to have two totally different reactions. And I'm okay with that now. But I've had to gone through a lot of self-reflection to really be more open to that situation. And
It's how you handle challenges.
it is.
Some people fold and other people rise to the challenge.
Definitely. And again, I just want to be, I'm blessed to be here. Every day for me is a blessing. I know that I can be gone tomorrow. I know that. I've lived through that. It's partly also the reason why I'm inspired to do so many things, because it's like, I could be dead tomorrow. If I didn't get to accomplish my goals and set out, I want to do the most that I can with the time that I have left. I don't know how much time I got left.
How old are you?
I'm 42.
You're still young.
Yeah. I still got a long ways. I hope. That's the plan. Keep myself healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally. Right? Those are all components of a being. Yeah.
Amazing story.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
so much,
letting me
Stefan.
share.
Thank you so much, Stefan.
You're welcome.
Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out. So once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.